Planet With is an anime series about giant robots which are being led by space aliens which look like people in furry costumes fighting against giant evil planet-destroying dragons. That sounds ridiculous, but that's generally the plot. Hello my friends, it's time to take a look at a couple of episodes of Planet With. I'm going to be reviewing 2 episodes today because I did not have an opportunity to watch the last one, and I'm kind of glad that I'm watching both of these together because it's a part of a brand new story arc which is beginning in the series, which is also seemingly concluded with the most recent episode, which is one of the most action-packed ones that I've seen from the entire series and has completely sold me on the entire weird, ridiculous concept that this series is trying to roll with. Essentially, this is the beginning and the end of the first major story arc of Planet With, which has some pretty massive revelations. The first episode that I'm going to talk about actually involves Soya revealing that he is an alien to Nozomi, and it makes it official that he is an alien from another planet that fell prey to this massive dragon creature, and now he's being used as a soldier for the Nebula forces, at least the ones that are the pacifist group, and they're there to fight against all sorts of evil and to prevent the Sealing Faction from bringing their rule down on a planet. But they're not necessarily there to stop Nebula altogether. It's a very interesting thing here. Not to mention you have Grand Paladin, who is fighting back against Nebula themselves with the power of the dragon. And it's been sort of following a formula for the last couple of episodes where they focus on one specific member. This episode is going to focus on Takezo, who is the father of Takashi, the leader of Grand Paladin, and he's the resident old man of the group who just wants to live out the rest of his days comfortably, eating steak and being doted on by beautiful women with alcohol. I mean, who can blame him? Out of nowhere, he kind of reveals the backstory of Takashi to Yosuke when they're having dinner. He mentions that 50 years ago, this weird meteorite fell out of the sky, and it was actually a baby. That baby ended up being Takashi. This is your first clue to know that there's something not quite right about this kid. You start to see a little bit more of that in the next episode, but already the implication here is that Takashi himself is not fully human. If that wasn't evidence enough by his lightning bolt frickin' eyebrows, it had to be his creepy, glowing dragon eyes. The rest of this episode pretty much plays out the same, with a Nebula weapon coming down and Grand Paladin trying to stop it. This time it's going to focus on Takezo as he tries to take this one down, which has got one of the most ridiculous designs I've ever seen. There's elephants, there's turtles, there's a giant bowl of rice, and a goofy-looking snake. Japan, lay off the drugs. Takezo jumps in and he gets blasted with all of this amazing, beautiful imagery of women serving him alcohol, giving him food, and simply just praising him. But again, he knows that this is all sort of this weird weapon which is concocted by Nebula. He rejects it and even has an interaction with his old wife, something that is actually the real Vision to test him, but he's able to actually make it through this. He conquers this creature, but actually realizes it was a trap. All of that stuff, the elephants, the rice, the friggin' turtle, it was all a distraction. It was actually the big, giant, goofy-looking 1980s styled arcade snake-looking creature, which goes around flying and destroying everything, and Takezo has no choice but to try and take this thing down, but he simply just does not have the power. Luckily, we have Soya, who's in town, who dons his mecha cat suit and goes to town flying, knowing that the next day he's going to have another really bad hangover. This is all basically just a springboard for seeing Soya and Takezo actually battle each other, and unfortunately it doesn't come to a close. You don't see that until the next episode, but what I especially love about this one is how it ended with a great cliffhanger ending. It actually ends with Takashi being confronted by his assistant Shiraishi, who's actually a part of Nebula, and she's actually working along with Generalissimo, who's the dog leader of Nebula's Sealing Faction, and very much like Soya and Sensei, he can actually swallow people and transform into a robot. He does so to battle against Takashi, who of course dons his massive Grand Paladin Photon God Dragon armor, and the episode ends right there. And then that brings us to this one right here, the episode that I watched today, and this episode was incredible. Easily one of the most visually stunning action episodes of the entire series. So basically what's going on here is that Takashi himself very well might be the reincarnation of this planet-destroying dragon. I'm not sure why this is, but they start to go into its backstory just a little bit more about how all this time ago, they actually sealed this dragon away in space and time itself, to the point where it should not have been able to return. It's also worth mentioning that Generalissimo, Sensei, and all the other people of their race appear to be a bunch of anthropomorphic furry people, which by itself is freaking hilarious and crazy. Just the fact that their giant spaceships are just like giant versions of themselves is so incredibly surreal, but immediately makes this one of the most visually and memorably awesome anime that I've seen in a really long time. So we have Generalissimo and Shiraishi who have teamed together. He has this like dog-like mech, which is very similar to Sensei's, battling against Takashi, who is just insane. Not only is he able to overpower him, but he even is able to overcome the power of space and time itself. What I mean by that is that Generalissimo actually has this attack where he can pull out like this giant picture frame which has like a portal inside of it, which can basically go to a subspace area where nothing exists. It's like a void. And not only is Takashi able to blast this thing with his Thor's hammer, but he's actually able to withstand it, considering how much more powerful he truly is. This guy is like fully fused with the power of the dragon in comparison to what we saw previous in the series with Haru, who is simply taken over by its actual power. But Takashi is so strong that Generalissimo cannot finish him off, so he has to leave it to Soya. In fact, he sort of forcibly makes that happen. And what I also love is that we got to see Ginkgo get involved in the battle as well. She doesn't do much. She's mostly there for moral support, but she's able to get in the cockpit with Sensei and Soya in order to amplify their power as they have their big battle with Takashi, which is insane. Definitely some of the best action from the entire series, with watching these characters fly around and use more of their signature styled attacks. Again, I love the transformation that Soya does when he actually has his flying armor with the samurai look to it. It looks particularly good in this episode right here, especially with his clawed attacks. But eventually, he is actually able to withstand this guy's power so much that Takashi loses control, and just like Haru, his mech actually transforms into a massive dragon. This one has even more power, though, which is insane. Not only can it blast giant beams from its mouth, but it can also create this like massive electrical attack, which could supposedly obliterate absolutely everything in its path. And after a very long battle, Soya is able to defeat him, and it actually ends with something of a fist fight, which is something that I did not expect to see at all, and very much reminded me of the scenes in Gurren Lagann where the characters were flung from their cockpits and forced to actually fight each other. There's a scene where at the very end of the episode, Takashi loses control of his dragon power, it suddenly disappears away from him, and then Sensei flies down, cockpit opens up, Soya runs out, sprinting towards him, not only manages to dodge one of his major attacks, but finishes him off with one punch by using his metal clogs as a freaking boxing glove. He defeats this guy, but he doesn't just defeat him, he straight up kills him. Takashi dies right there, just evaporating into mummy dust out of nowhere. And something about this entire scene just seems really ominous, as Soya sees a vision of his brother, and he thinks that now everything is over. He's destroyed the evil that potentially could have destroyed his planet. I have a feeling this is only the beginning of something even crazier, especially considering that, remember, this is only episode 6 of Planet With. So what's the rundown on this episode of Planet With? This is an episode that honestly felt like it could have been the last. It was that good. There were a lot of elements about this episode I loved. The action, the backgrounds, the art style, the atmosphere, and again, I cannot praise this series enough for its sound design. It's unique, and it's not reusing a lot of elements that I've heard before in other anime series, and whenever there's like a big attack or someone does something big and flashy, you feel it. Watch this show with a good sound system. It's absolutely going to blow you away. But the biggest things about these episodes is that we're finally officially knowing that Soya himself is an alien from another planet, and we also get to see that this whole dragon thing, like apparently it can be reincarnated into people, and I don't know even if Takashi really was the true reincarnation of this dragon or not, or if it was just sort of like a warning or an omen that this thing is eventually going to be coming to this planet. But there's a lot of little things in this episode that are worth talking about. I mean, there's so many little scenes that just fly by, a lot of blink and you'll miss it moments of the backstory of Nebula, the sealing of the dragon, like that moment where you see the entire planet of all those furry people and everything. It's ridiculous. I can't wait to learn a little bit more about what all of this is going on and why Nebula truly is sort of like divided down the middle, yet there really doesn't seem to be any violence between the two groups. They just sort of allow each other to do their very own things. It's strange. This is a show that has no real clear-cut villains or heroes. It's not black and white about anything, and easily I think that's one of the most fascinating things about it. It also helps that the mecha design is incredibly unique and unlike anything that I've ever seen, and the battles themselves are also just as unique. I hope to see more awesome robots fighting against dragons in the future, because just the overall concept of that, and just saying that out loud, robots fighting dragons, is just metal. I absolutely love it, and I loved both of these episodes, which is why I'm going to give both of them a 5 out of 5. Planet With is an anime series that I think is going to be overlooked this year, mostly because it didn't get a lot of promotion or fanfare, but man, do I highly recommend this show. It is just way too much fun to not miss. Really, I think it's going to go down as something of a cult classic, and I can't wait to see more of this amazing series, as it's almost completely unpredictable in the story that it's trying to tell, and it just looks really good while it's doing it. It's Planet With. That's my thoughts on these episodes, but I want to get all of yours, and you can tell me in the comment section below what you guys are hoping to see from the rest of Planet With. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down, baby.